Virus 13, Chapter 30. The executive offices of James' firm stood at the very peak of the pyramid. Ari walked ahead of James at a good clip, the sharp click-clack of his hard leather shoes the only audible sound in the silent corridor. James struggled to keep up. The walls around them were busy with awards and plaques racked up by the company over 100+ years of scientific breakthroughs. They climbed one more flight of stairs and found themselves at a desk, where a lean-looking secretary sat with short red hair and swollen pink lips that matched her even more swollen cleavage. The secretary looked up at the sound of Ari's footsteps. She smiled, her lips parting to show 2 rows of perfectly straight, bleached white teeth. She nodded toward the double doors of Dr. Wistman's office. "He's ready to see you." Ari went first, pushing open both doors, making no attempt to hold them open for James, who had to sidestep as they swung back at him like punching bags. He snorted to show his disapproval of Ari's rudeness, but the man showed no sign of hearing it. James had never seen Dr. Wistman's office with his own eyes, only heard stories. It was incredible. Above them loomed the 4 corners of the building, touching together to form the mighty point of the pyramid. The horizon was visible in every direction. From here, the earth was just a gigantic stretch of green dotted here and there with wind turbines and other signs of humanity that stood out like pock-marked scars. James felt like he was standing on a cloud. Considering its size, the room was basically empty, looking more like a high school gymnasium than an executive office. In fact, a one-lane running track circled the perimeter of the room. The only indication of an office was a bovine of an oak desk. Behind it, Dr. Wistman casually leaned back in a chair, looking like royalty. There was a single chair positioned across from the desk, giving the impression that the CEO only met with one person at a time. Next to the desk was a stand with a television playing the news with the volume muted, leaving only flashing images of men in hazmat suits. As they approached the desk, Dr. Wistman jumped up from his seat and stretched out his arms to give James a hug. "James, so good to see you." He pulled back and examined James' incision. "How are you feeling?" Embarrassed, James threw up his hands. "I'm doing better now. I feel like I just crossed through St. Peter's pearly gates." "Pearly gates," said James. "It's pretty up there." Westman laughed. "So what can I do for you?" "Well, James stuttered briefly, looking over at the imposing Ari. "It's quite serious, actually. Do you mind if we talk alone?" Dr. Wistman paused for a second and glanced at his son. "Ari, I believe Savali is looking for you. She needs your help preparing for our guest." Ari nodded, but James caught the brief flash of protest that crossed the man's face as he left James and his father alone. Over Dr. Wistman's shoulder, James saw that the TV was showing a row of bodies covered in white sheets. The CEO turned to look at the morbid scene and then back at James. "Guess?" asked James. "Oh no, weary of yours. Now tell me, what is on your mind?" For being well over 100 years old, James was shocked at how remarkably fit this man was. His arms and legs were laced with pinky-sized veins and tough, ropey muscle. "Sir, I need to tell you something. It's only right I tell you firsthand." "And what's that?" "To state it simply, my children, my 2 cousins and myself are all missing the cancer-proof genes." Dr. Westman frowned. "And how do you know this?" "After my lying brain tumor, my aunt gave me a DNA sequencing study that showed her kids were missing the cancer-proof genes. I grew suspicious and personally sequenced my DNA as well as my children's. Someone inside Gene Firm must be creating peoples without these genes, and we need to find out who. The death of my aunt was not an accident. It's too coincidental. She was the only other person who knew about the missing genes, and someone killed her because of it. I didn't know what to do, so I contacted Homeland Healthcare and told them everything." Dr. Wistman looked concerned. He stood up and walked toward the glass walls behind him. He waited for James to follow. The CEO looked out over the world below. His eyes drifted over the scenery, looking lost for a moment. After an awkward pause, he cleared his throat, apologized, and then started to speak. This is not news to me, James. I wish you had come to me first. Getting the government involved would only make things messy. Sir, Dr. Wiseman swept his head around his office. 160 years ago, my father changed the course of humanity forever. The cancer-proof genes were arguably the biggest medical breakthrough of all time. In the old days, heart disease and cancer were the leading two causes of death, and they bagged heart disease easily enough with prevention, so cancer was the last big killer. So what now? Was it a good idea to eliminate death? Many people, including myself, question the logic of ridding humanity of these plagues that some would argue are completely natural. Was what my father developed really a cure? Silence settled around them, and James suddenly had a horrible sinking feeling. Dr. Wiseman continued, as a civilization, we are not winning the battle on overcrowding. Birth control and limited conception laws are helping, but these will leave nothing but a black skid mark on the pavement as we huddle over the edge. You see, ironically, by curing these diseases, we have shortened the ultimate lifespan of our species. Our planet is overpopulated, natural resources are dwindling, and I can honestly say this is very company. My father's brainchild is the engineer of it all. He can't save us. Dr. Wiseman turned toward James and locked his fierce eyes upon him, his face as serious as stone. He doomed us. My father, my clone, me, it's hard to see a difference between us now. What we thought was a blessing was really a curse. Individuals aren't supposed to live forever, James. Every parent must leave this planet in order to make room for his grandchildren. Do you understand what I'm saying? Of course, Dr. Wiseman, but you can't blame humans for wanting to live long, healthy lives. You can't stop progress. Progress, snorted Dr. Wiseman. Fire was progress. What we have now is far different. A dark tone had crept into Dr. Wiseman's voice. Listen, you can't blame yourself for the ills of the world. We will struggle on. Conservation and technology will make our species sustainable. You are an optimist, James. I have been studying this issue for most of my career. The statistics all point in one direction, and that is a fast approaching demise of the great human experience. I'm talking about the end of our species. The dinosaurs had their time, and we high-minded chimps have just about finished ours. Overpopulation isn't even the biggest problem. So what is it then? Those little organisms that my father found in the Ganges, they are the real problem. The parasite whose genes prevent cancer in almost every man, woman, and child in this country. An organism that can no longer mutate. That genes has the exact same genetic material today as it did when my father studied it. That's over 150 years with each organism replicating 100 times a day. During that time, any normal species would have accumulated over 3 million mutations. 3 million. I'm talking about evolution, James. Thanks to that parasite, the human race is now the evolutionary equivalent of stagnant water. Evolution is a driving force behind nature. Without it, we are condemned to failure. Mutations can lead to cancer, this is true. But mutations to our genetic code are essential in defending our species against infectious plagues. Over a lifetime, bacteria and viruses develop resistances to the human immune system, only to be thwarted by a mutating human genetic code. Mutation is a weapon by which we fight this never-ending arms race. Today we rely almost exclusively on our vaccines and medicines because the bugs have bested our natural defenses. My father was a foolish, overconfident man. Dr. Wiseman smiled and put a hand on James' shoulders. And that is where you come in.